So, welcome everyone. My name is Jan Lehman. I'm the CEO and visionary of CTC Productivity. I'm the host of our webinar series. And if you're new joining us today, just know that we do content at the beginning and then open it up for Q&A. At any point, feel free to enter your questions into the chat and we'll make sure we circle back to those. I have to call out the elephant in the room. A lot of people make fun of us because we're Microsoft 365 experts and we use Zoom for our webinars. But the reason for that is we don't want any technical speed bumps for anybody that wants to join us. So we want to make it super easy for people to log on to our webinar. So that's why we're on Zoom. Today, our topic is about integrating 90IO and Teams. And honestly, it's about integrating any of the EOS third-party applications in with the Teams environment. So that's what our focus is going to be today. And then next week, or our next session, I'm going to enter a bunch of links in the chat. Our next section is actually on what is a Copilot agent and how to use Copilot to leverage your data within your Microsoft 365 environment. So entered into chat, there's a link to register for that webinar. Don't even worry if you're available because you'll get the recording even if you can't attend. The other links are for signing up for our newsletter where we'll tell you about future webinars or have recordings of past webinars and different things. And I think there's a link to like our YouTube channel and yeah, lots of things to explore. So feel free to check that one out. I am going to touch on a couple things and then I'll pass it over to Arnie to talk today. So we never recommend just installing software for the sake of installing software. There has to be a business reason. There has to be something you're trying to address, and therefore you want to install and leverage the software. When we're working with any company, if we ever see or hear any of these comments, we know there's something in the Microsoft 365 environment that you should be exploring. In the EOS world, a really good way to think about it is if you're having capacity issues, you should definitely be exploring 365 because everything runs more efficiently, in particular for teams working together. And so it frees people up to be in their GWC flow where they're doing what you want them doing and not doing tedious, mundane tasks. So if any of these business issues resonate with you, I'm glad you're here. So we always start off by sharing a case study, and there's a link to the case study in the links that I just sent you, just to give you a perspective of what are business issues that can be solved by leveraging 365. So I'll just run through this fast. So I was coaching a CEO. Well, the CEO reached out to me and she was having issues because she was working way too much in the business, not on the business, not focused strategically. They were growing super fast and she was adding bodies onto her team, but balls were dropping between players. So she knew she had to do something differently. So she hired me initially to coach her, which is fabulous because then I can focus on soft skill things like effective delegation and planning, all that kind of stuff. And so we really increased her personal productivity. But while I was coaching her, I observed that there was a lot of inconsistencies, inefficiencies with the way her team worked together. And so some of the team challenges were a lot of their internal discussions were still happening in email and things were getting lost. They had a hybrid work environment. And so whenever they were out of the office, they couldn't easily access information, which is a huge issue with productivity. And there was a particular issue around managing customer activities. It was very time consuming for the CEO and everybody else on the team. So there's lots of opportunity here for improvement. They had an industry specific CRM, customer relationship management system, and it was awesome. And we always tell people, you know, if Microsoft can meet your needs, get rid of your third-party software. But sometimes third-party software has bells and whistles and features way above and beyond what Microsoft will provide. In this particular case, their CRM was specific for their industry. It was excellent, but it had a lot of limitations, in particular around reporting and transparency. They just couldn't see stuff, and it was just causing them a lot of time to try to figure out what, where things were in the pipeline. They tried to install some CRM workflows, but again, it was really kind of rigid and hard to do, and it was really very frustrating for the whole team. So what we did for them is we moved all of the conversations out of email into the Teams environment. And I'm guessing many of you have been doing that. But what Arnie and I and Nancy see quite often is most companies don't really understand how to set up teams and chat and channel efficiently within their organization. So we really moved it over and set it up properly to drive productivity. We moved all their data over, so now everything was cloud-based. And then the key thing that we did was, and I was Arnie doing this, built out a SharePoint application to really supplement their CRM. Now, some of you, I know you all know that SharePoint's a place for storing documents in the cloud, but SharePoint's also a place where you can build out robust applications. And when you learn how to leverage this tool, you now have an amazing tool in your tool belt because you can apply it to a lot of different processes and areas across your business. So we did just that. We built a supplement to supplement their CRM. And the results of working with them, all of the internal discussions now much more efficient, balls not dropping now that they were over in the chat and channel environment. They could easily access everything when they're out of their office because everything was in the cloud. And now they had this wonderful centralized portal within Teams where everything was being pulled in together, which is exactly what Arnie's going to be talking about today. According to the CEO, the SharePoint solution was a total game changer. They quickly now can get status updates, and now she's 100% confident in her team that they're not going to drop the ball, and she can elevate now into working more on the business, not in the business. So big win for them as well. We always provide an ROI on our case studies. So with the investment, with the coaching, the project was only a little over 10,000, not much at all. The great thing about building applications out in the Microsoft 365 environment versus using a third-party software is you don't have ongoing subscription fees. So in this particular case, we built everything out within their Microsoft environment. They now owned it. They weren't paying extra subscription fees for third-party software. This was actually a 3-person company, and they were about ready to hire a 4th person. But now that they had all these efficiencies within the environment, they didn't need to hire the 4th person. Their savings overall was 3/4 of a person. So I'd say it's a pretty good ROI when you consider the cost of hiring a full-time resource into your business. So perfect. All right, Arnie, I am going to stop sharing. I would love to introduce you all to Arnie House. Arnie is one of our amazing business analysts, SharePoint guru, Microsoft 365 guru. He comes at everything very much from a business lens. And yeah, we're excited to hear what you have to say today, Arnie.
Hey, thanks, Jen. I wasn't very efficient this week. I forgot to reserve a conference room, so I got stuck in the old vacant office. So yeah, I think the lighting's terrible, and I think if I held one of those flashlights up, I could be like a horror movie or something. Sorry about the shadowy face, which I guess in my case may not be bad. Anyway, integrating EOS and Teams. Two great tools that go great together. If it kind of like the old, if you're old enough to remember the Reese's commercials, chocolate and peanut butter together. Well, the EOS apps and Teams go great together. Of course, in our estimation, Teams goes great with everything. So today we'll cover as much on Teams as EOS and the EOS apps. So with that, let's get this going. If I could get my button to work. There we go. So let's start really basic. Everybody has Windows, at least if you have a PC. We all know what Windows is, but basically it's the operating system for individual computers. All that other stuff on there came from the Microsoft website. What is Windows? But it's obviously the operating system for individual computers. It's a good thing. I despise Windows 11. I can't wait for 12 to come out, or I wish I could go back to 10, but it is what it is. Windows generally works really well. But the problem is all of the employees have varying degrees of skill, abilities to use Windows, ability to use the apps that Windows facilitates. So sometimes it's like herding cats. You're not always convinced as a business owner or leader that everyone is real efficient. So where I'm going with that is Teams can help that. So this is an old study from McKinsey. I think it's even more pertinent today, but they did this study across dozens of industries, hundreds of companies. And the average they found was that knowledge workers, people who spend time on devices, spent 61% of every day doing what I call non-value added activities. It may be important work, but it does not add value to the services or the products that customers are willing to pay for. If you've learned lean manufacturing, you're familiar with the term non-value added tasks. But that takes up a chunk of their day. But the scary thing is You hire employees to do a specific job. Some of that involves the juggling information, but you generally want them doing something that is more geared toward making money, helping the bottom line, helping the customer, adding to the value of the service or the product. And I got to know, this survey was clear back in 2012. There's tons more information out there now. I bet those statistics are even worse today. But McKinsey said, you know what? If you implement social technologies, you can improve productivity by 20 to 25%. That's a pretty healthy number. That was 5 years prior to Microsoft Teams being released. Had they known about Microsoft Teams, it's not just a social technology. I personally think that number, depending on how inefficient you are now, I think that the number could be way closer to 50, 40 at least. So y'all know what EOS is, or you wouldn't have signed up, I think, but basically it's the operating system, I think, for your business strategy. So you have Windows for your individual computers, your employees' operating strategy for their computers. You have EOS, does a whale of a job managing your business strategy and gives you a system to make that strategy happen, hence the name of the book, Traction. So Teams, what is Teams? I call it, when I'm representing it to people who don't know the potential of Teams, I just call it your business operating system. It can bring everything from your business, EOS, anything in Windows, third-party apps. It can bring it all together and gives you a way to manage your business. So y'all showed up because you're interested in EOS. And so I want to answer, or try to answer the question, why would we use, let me get these, I can't see my notes here, so I'm going to minimize it.
Getting old stinks, sorry.
What's that, Jan?
So getting old stinks. Can't read your notes.
Yeah, it does. But even when I was 20, I couldn't see through an obstruction. But yes, I am getting old. I remember Marcia Yaki. So anyway, so why would you integrate everything into Teams? So think of this funnel as Teams. It's I think Teams is, it's got so many strong points, but one of those strong points is its ability to aggregate and coordinate everything in your business, or at least most of everything that technology touches. So if you throw your EOS strategy, your EOS tools in there, no matter what tool you use, integrate it into Teams. And with Teams, as the leader of the business and the person trying to herd all of these cats and these people with differing levels of skill and computing habits and all of your technology, throw that into Teams as well. And one of the things that I probably spend 70% of my professional life helping organizations use Teams well. Mm-hmm. And a big part of using Teams well and using it strategically is customizing Teams to exactly match your unique processes. Mm-hmm. Whatever those are, Teams will help facilitate those processes the way you want them. And in the end, if you throw all that into Teams, all of the processes in your business, at least those that technology touches, will be more strategic, more streamlined, and they will be standardized because every employee will be working on the same song sheet, from the same song sheet. So it's up to you as a business leader then to use Teams to spoon feed these streamlined processes to the employees. Now, when I get new clients, when I talk to other people, I'm telling you, if you have not begun strategically using Teams, there's a whole lot on the table there that you perhaps should look into. So how do you track EOS? I frequent a few EOS forums. I have not been to an EOS conference, but Jan has been to several. Anytime EOS is being discussed, the number one question, the number one topic is, well, what do you use to track EOS? How do you keep track of your rocks and your issues, etc.? Some people use 90. We hear so many good things about 90. There's EOS One, there's Bloom Growth, and now there's a new one called Streddy. We're hearing good things about it. There are a lot of different ways to track EOS, and it's an important tracking and managing your EOS items, whether it's rocks, long-term goals, VTO, issues, to-do list, those things need tracked. So you've got a lot of options to manage your EOS items. And here I'm going to use 90. It seems to be the most commonly used tool, but I did check in, and I don't personally have experience with too many of them, but I did check online, and the interwebs told me that all of these apps have they are browser based. There may be an app, I don't know, that you can put on your phone that you can download to your computer, but they still have browser based interface. So to integrate it into Teams, it's really quite simple. You go to the browser version of the app and you drill. Let's say in this case, we want to display our rocks in Teams. We want to save employees, some staff members, some clicks. So don't simply put the 90 dashboard in this location because you're wanting rocks specifically. You want to save them the clicks to drill down into the rocks. So drill down, get the URL from whatever deeply nested page you want to display in Teams, and copy that URL. So then you go to Teams. And in this case, I have my fictional property management company, and we love channels. Channels are like super folders. They're like the top level folders in your shared drive, but they do so much more if you leverage them well. We always like to have an EOS channel, and across the top you have the mobile version of Teams calls them apps. I cannot get out of the habit of calling them tabs. Regardless, you have the electronic resources at the top that you spoon feed to your employees. And we want to put our rocks up there. You can see in my example, they're already there, but we're going to add them again. So the little plus sign up in the top row, you click it and this dialog box will show up where you can add any of hundreds and hundreds of apps. So at the top of that dialog box, there's a search box. If you don't see the website icon across the top, I always see it because I use it often. But type website into there and do a search, and website will come up. And remember, we've got the deep URL to the rocks page in 90 on our clipboard. So we just paste the URL in there, change the tab name to rocks, and then click save when you do that. And this is the way it used to be in Teams, where it actually displayed the web page in Teams. It worked most of the time, but it was sometimes a little bit wonky. It sometimes hung up. And so Microsoft made a change, I think probably a year and a half ago, to where when you click that tab, in this case, the rocks page would instantly open up in your browser. I don't like the fact that it pops up outside of Teams. I like to get it to where employees do all of their work in Teams, but it's still pretty good. It beats employees having to open an app or open their browser, click on their favorites, and read the drop down in their favorites and choose rocks. So even though it opens in your browser it's still a great way to integrate all of your 90 tools into Teams. And of course, you would do the same thing for your issues, your to-do list, or whatever. And like I said, this will work for all of the other EOS tracking apps. You just want to go grab the URL of the page you want to display. It's pretty easy stuff. And plus, it'll get you in the habit of using channels and tabs. So there's more to managing EOS than just your rocks, your tasks, etc. You can manage EOS holistically with Teams. When I say holistically, it's managing those things that perhaps your third-party EOS tracking app does not work on. And plus, your employees, your staff members are not always in the EOS app. they are doing Excel documents, Word documents, PowerPoints, Outlook, all of those other things. Hopefully they're chatting and doing work in Teams anyway. So I'm not a big fan of straddling apps. I know that some of the EOS apps have good messaging capabilities, and maybe the messages might attach to some items in EOS, the rocks, for example. But I'm still a fan of moving a lot of your collaboration into Teams because employees are there anyway, or hopefully they are. So to manage EOS holistically in Teams, I love using the messaging and communication methods in Teams. Most companies, most clients I work with, they're big into chat if they use Teams much at all. They have not learned the value of channel posts. We're humongous fans of channel posts. Those, when used well, those are such a benefit to businesses. You build knowledge bases, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I could talk for another hour on that.
And we have prior webinars on channels, so you can check that out.
That's right. Yes. And we're going to talk about a couple of the prior webinars. So thanks, Jan. So I said this multiple times, but it bears repeating because the strong point of Teams and SharePoint is everything in one place. I say and SharePoint because you put SharePoint on top of Teams in Teams, and so everything is still in one place. And a lot of clients, no matter what app they're using, they still do their scorecards in Excel. Excel, since it is a natively in 365, works very, very well with Teams. I'll show that in just a second. So the issue discussions, and Rock is off track. You can have those discussions in the channel posts, chat, whatever. And here is an example of how you can attach comments to the items in 365 as well, or usually better than some of the EOS apps. Here's a case where I have displayed a very simple Excel scorecard in Teams. And if you've never used Excel in Teams, that is the mobile version of Excel, and employees can update their information there. They click one time on the tab, Excel opens up in Teams, and they can edit the data. But here you can see I have begun at mentioning, that's my wife, who's the other employee of my tiny company. But I got a question about that 96 in looks like housekeeping. I can at mention her. She will get a notification, and we can have the conversation attached to that cell. Now, if you've not used at mentioning in Teams or all across 365, at mentioning works just about anywhere, and it's awesome because it keeps you from having to copy links and put them in an email or a Teams message, etc. You just at mention them right where you want to have, right where the data or information is you want to have a discussion about. Here's a good thing in 365, everything has a link associated with it. So you can always grab it and put it anywhere, send it anywhere, share it. And business strategy in front of employees where they do work. Not everything your employees do is EOS. They do lots of other work, I hope. So you could get the business strategy right in front of them where they work. You can put it in multiple channels, multiple teams, get it in front of people. And I think I may be getting ahead of myself, but I know that a lady told me yesterday that 90 has the ability to add people as guest users. You don't have to pay an extra monthly charge, and you can share things with them. But I'm pretty positive that then they have to go to 90 to see it. So if you use Teams, if someone has a 365 license, you can include them in however manner you want to include them. So I'm just going to touch briefly on this. This is why I'm repeating it, but channels, if you're not leveraging channels, please do. You'll do yourself a big favor. Now, there are strategies, best practices for using those channels, but I just want to make sure you know they're there. As I said, we always like to have an EOS channel, and non-EOS companies, I recommend a management channel. Mm-hmm. And then the electronic resources across the top. Now, to end, I want to throw another option out here. It's not for everybody, but for some people, it is awesome. But you can use SharePoint for EOS tracking. I have done 2 or 3 previous webinars for Jan on using SharePoint for EOS tracking. If you want to learn more, I think she's going to get the link in everyone's hands. But a great thing about using SharePoint is you can actually display it, and it's completely functional right inside of Teams. This is the VTO, but let's say you see the VTO and say, oh, that complete TSI on all wooded areas right there. We moved that farther along. I need to update it. I can double click it and update it right there. I don't have to navigate to a separate page or tool. And here's a summary view of the rocks done in a SharePoint list. And those SharePoint lists are all tied together. It is certainly better than cobbled together Excel spreadsheets. But if I had to be completely truthful about it, if you're looking for bells and whistles and slickness, you cannot go wrong with 90 or Stretty or those other apps. They're very good. They should be. They charge a monthly fee. They have developers who do developing for a living. They build nice bells and whistles. And then down at the other end of this continuum is cobbled together Excel spreadsheets. Many EOS companies, especially little bitty ones, they manage their EOS with just a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. If I had to put SharePoint in here, I would put it about there. It's well on its way to the third-party apps. The bells and whistles are not as good. The functionality might be just a tad clunky compared to those, but it definitely gets the job done. And with that said, why might you consider keeping your EOS tracking in 365 and mostly in SharePoint? Is there's no additional monthly charge. You can put as many people in there. You're already paying their license, but you will never have another charge for it beyond your standard Microsoft charge. It's more customizable. I doubt that you could call 90 or any of those other apps up and say, hey, I want to change this in the guts of your tool. They're not going to let you. And if they do, they're going to charge a lot. You can have a single platform business-wide. Your employees are using Microsoft products all across the rest of your processes. So when they go to do their EOS work, they're familiar with the interface. It reduces information sprawl because your data is all in one platform. The skills are universal. There are Microsoft skills all over the place, unlike third-party apps of any kind, not just EOS. The skills are extendable. If you learn to use, in this example, SharePoint for your EOS, light bulbs are going to go on in your head. You're going to say, oh, I see how these work. We've got this tracking process over here, as Jan mentioned with Robin's company. The CRM had a bit of a gap in its functionality. We could do that in SharePoint. You are going to find uses for SharePoint and for the other 365 apps all across your business. And here's a biggie, Copilot. If you're not using Copilot, I encourage you to get with it. It's not going to be long, and we're almost there, where using AI for your business is the cover charge. It is not innovative. Everybody's going to be doing it. So get to know Copilot. And I would even suggest having one employee get the paid version, $30 a month, and task that employee with learning what can be done to help your business. But all of that to say, if you do EOS and SharePoint, it is immediately mineable by Copilot, and it stays within your company, not shared across the world. And here's something I touched on earlier. You can seamlessly get your vision, mission, goals, and rocks in front of all your employees if you want to do so without additional licensing, and you can put it in front of them where they work in Teams. So I talked kind of fast there. If you got any questions about something maybe you didn't quite catch, please put them in the chat or speak up here in a minute and we'll do a little Q&A. But I'm going to hand it back to Jan right now.
Awesome, Arnie. Yeah, feel free to start entering any questions into chat. I just have a couple slides I'm going to go through. Go ahead, Arnie, go to the next one. And then we will open it up for Q&A. So a lot of times people stumble upon our webinars on YouTube and they're like, what is this company? What do they do? So just give a little background. So we help companies leverage the power of Microsoft 365. And think of us as augmenting your current internal, external IT group. So we're not there to replace anybody there. We are there to come in as Microsoft experts. My team can barely keep up with Microsoft, and that's all we do. I can't imagine what internal IT groups are doing, trying to manage all the stuff they have with cybersecurity and all of that. So our process is pretty straightforward. It's our proven process, as we all know in the EOS world. Typically, we're going to peek under the hood and assess the situation. One of the things that Arnie and Nancy and I and our team recognize all the time, probably about, I think, Arnie, you always say 99% of companies do not have Teams and SharePoint set up properly. We see that all the time. People think they're using it right, but they're not. So typically we're peeking under the hood, doing some rearranging or migrating everything over to the environment. But getting that foundation set up first before you'd ever consider layering on Streti or 90 or any of those things on top of that foundation is super important, because that drives productivity. Then we go in the optimize phase, and that's where we're helping you with leveraging Copilot, Power Automate, Power BI, all the other suite of tools within Microsoft 365. If you're not familiar with Copilot, Arnie kind of hinted toward it. The power of Copilot is it leverages your data within your Microsoft 365 environment. So if you've got a third-party app that has all your rocks and different things out here, it's not able to easily access that environment. If you build out everything in 365, it has easy access to help you. So it's a game changer for sure. And then ultimately, we wrap up. We are not intending to be have companies be dependent on us. We're there to train your technology folks, train your end users, help you get it set up. Arnie, you can go to the next slide. There's lots of different strategies on how to help with adoption of rolling out 365. I'll just touch on one of our favorites. There's a million different ways to do everything in Microsoft. I'm sure you've all seen that. That hurts productivity when you've got different people in the company doing different things, different ways. So we always talk about the importance of creating what we call rules of engagement, or your operations manual that very clearly states how everything should be used. When are we using, when are we using chat? When are we using channels? All that kind of stuff to drive productivity. So perfect. Thanks for letting me share a little bit there. Arnie, you can go ahead and stop. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Thank you. Just a reminder, I'm going to enter into chat these links one more time. If you want to sign up for our next webinar, again, if you're not available, it's fine. We'll send you the recording. So we're doing what is a Copilot agent and how does it help leverage your data? So that's our next section. And I think we're good. Yeah, Arnie, if you want to stop sharing then. And Samantha, I want to thank you for having your video on. Hey, Becky, I didn't know you had your video on. I just saw you, but I could see Samantha was laughing at Arnie's joke. So see, it's worth it to have at least one person we can see. Perfect. All right. Any questions? And Becky, thank you for your comments in the chat. I'm glad you're here and you're considering it. If you want to chime in or share anything, please do. But we're welcome to take any questions.
Hi, Jan, it's Quinn. I'm so sorry. I ended up hopping on quite late. Is this one going to have a recording sent out as well to the attendees?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect.
If you registered, you should get the recording in the next day or two. So yeah, no worries.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. So it can be questions about anything on this webinar or anything about 365. So.
I did a thorough job, Jan.
Yeah, you're so good, Arnie. Are any of you considering, yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious where people are at in your decision, but so Becky, it sounds like you guys are debating switching maybe.
Yeah, so I would say our team lives in SharePoint and Teams already, and so logging into Bloom Growth once a week for their level 10 meeting is just like one more login and password, one more bookmark, one more place to go. And so I was super curious when I saw this topic come out, because anything we can do to reduce the number of systems we're using and further integrate, it's going to create a better experience for our team. So yeah. I think I've also got a lot of curiosity about the custom agent in Copilot. Yeah, so happy to see you'll be seeing my face again at that webinar if we don't follow up sooner on that topic.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
But yeah,
Thanks for sharing.
I will also say the new Bloom just came out with that new interface. I don't think it's required yet. I think you can still toggle back and use the legacy version, but just the learning curve with that, with the size of our team, has been not a fabulous user experience. And so I think that's just part of the reason why I feel like now might be a good time to do this.
Oh, interesting. Becky, thanks for sharing. It's funny, we had one client when we helped get rid of a lot of third-party apps and have them use all Microsoft stuff. They said they were just so happy not to have multiple IDs and passwords for all the different tools. That was one of their biggest perks.
Yeah,
Is
that's a real
managing
thing.
passwords. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Like a part-time job.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
one of the things I was going to say, Becky, is you might want to talk to IT, because sometimes they can set you up with single sign-on, that once you sign on to your Microsoft, you don't have to sign on to Bloom Growth, especially if you're going to integrate it into Teams. So just ask them. They know better how to do it. I just know it's something that can be done with most apps.
Awesome. Thanks, Nance.
Thank you.
Love my team. That's great. Thank you. Well, any questions, or and if not, we'll log off, but we're happy to answer any question you might have about 365. Or what we typically observe is most people set up too many teams and too many channels. And I would say their channels often reflect organizational structure. And what I've learned from my amazing team with Arnie and Nancy and the others is it really should not match organizational structure. It should really be processes, topics. It's a different way of organizing, but unless you understand the broader strategy of how to set it up, sometimes it can be quite messy. So usually there's a lot of cleanup, but it drives productivity. So that's good.
Could I get the name of the prior recording on channels? I'm on your page with all of the past webinars, but
Yeah, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Nancy, do you know?
Now, are you on her website, or are you on her YouTube channel? Because if you go to the YouTube channel and you look at all of the webinars, that's easier than trying to find them on her website. Because I was looking for a link for a client the other day, and I went, okay, nope, so go to the YouTube channel, and that should be more helpful. If you should be able to search just her channel for EOS. And I know the other ones that Arnie did, I believe all the titles have EOS in them, or at least the descriptions.
Nancy, I think she's looking for, so in the chat, I entered the link to the EOS webinars. I think, Samantha, you're looking for the one that explains how to set up channels. Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, then well, that should still search for Teams.
Channel. Samantha, if you can't find it, can you send me an email and I'll find it and send it to you. We've done webinars for so many years, I can't remember the titles, but we always are, and it might not even be the main topic, but we talk about it. So please send me an email if you don't mind, and I'm happy to get you that link if you can't find it. So perfect. Awesome.
I don't think we had channels in any of the titles, so it would just be a Teams.
Okay, Teams topic. Okay. Yeah. As a general rule, Samantha, just think of a channel as it should be a process or a topic. So EOS is a perfect example, right? There's a lot of discussion and there's a lot of documents all around this process of EOS. It's a really good definition of a channel. So you don't want to set up channels like, the manufacturing department. You'd want to set it up like quality control or some sort of process where you're trying to organize the discussions and topics. There you go. There's your shortcut lesson on what a channel is. Perfect. So, all right. Well, I say let's go ahead and head out if there's no questions. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you ladies for having your camera on. So we appreciate it. So, all right. Thanks, Arnie. Awesome job as always.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.